Welcome to the Animal Agenda on KPFK. I'm Melody King, a longtime animal advocate and founder of Los Feliz Animal Rescue. This week, I'm joined by my co-host, Tom Kiesche. In addition to a multi-hyphenate entertainer, Tom is an animal advocate who spends his time volunteering and educating the public about animal issues, and also guest hosts this program. Today, Tom and I will answer some listener questions that we've received.
But first, I think we need to remind people that we are currently in Fund Drive. We'll discuss some of our previous guests and topics, how relevant they are in our everyday lives when it comes to animals that enhance our lives in many ways. I encourage you to support this program and the valuable information that we share. The number to call to donate is 818 985 5735, 818 985 KPFK. You can also donate online at kpfk.org.
We started this show in 2023, and since then we featured topics across the animal spectrum from pets and housing, urban wildlife.
Talked about bees.
We talked about bees. We've had some really great guests on. You've had
Dr. Wags.
we've had Diana Prado from Heart LA about pets and housing. We've had Gina Farr from Project Coyote. You've been a guest. I've
I
been a
have been
guest.
a guest. You've been a guest.
Zach Scow from Marley's Mutts was a great one. We learned all about predators from Cassandra Chowdhury from Claw, Citizens for Los Angeles Wildlife.
And we're going to have more great guests on. We're talking to a horse sanctuary, talking to animal control officers. So
And the LA Zoo, I think you mentioned also.
LA Zoo is thinking about coming on. So we're just trying to make that work. So when you deal with corporations, sometimes you have to go through a lot of channels.
It takes a minute. So we encourage you to support this program and the station so we can continue sharing helpful and valuable information that you can use every day when it comes to your furry friends, wildlife, and various animal related issues.
Hold on. I got to break this up. I think we have to once again say the number to call to donate is 818 985 5735, 818 985 KPFK. You can also donate securely online at kpfk.org. We really appreciate your listenership and support and welcome your feedback. Hey, you can email us at comments@kpfk.org. That's comments@kpfk.org.
And you can also find us on our Facebook page, The Animal Agenda. So let's get into some of these questions.
Well,
Tom, here's one I think is a good one for you. We talk a lot about volunteering and you do a lot of shelter work, obviously, and people want to know why can't the public just go and volunteer for a day to walk dogs?
So I think it's important to know that I'm not a representative of the systems that I volunteer with. I'm just an individual speaking in my own individual capacity. But from what I know is that litigation is the big concern of the city and the county. And when you allow a dog outside of the kennel in the hands of the public, they're worried that something might happen either with the handler themselves or with somebody coming up to the dog who doesn't know the dog and the handler doesn't really know the dog. So a lot of it has to do with litigation, and other municipalities in smaller towns get around that, or they have people sign waivers, but the systems that I volunteer in just haven't done that. There was a period where they were doing day fostering where they would allow certain dogs to go out with certain day fosters for a certain amount of time, and they had to be back by a certain time. But when COVID hit, that went out the window. So maybe it'll come back, maybe it won't, but it's usually about litigation. That's the reason why.
Oh, that's a shame.
It is a shame. I got a question for you.
Okay.
You run a rescue,
Yes.
and I'm involved with the periphery of some other rescues. And I've heard this question many times, but why is it that rescues charge rehoming fees?
I get this one a lot, and when you see people post things online like free kittens or free puppies or anything like that, there's always, I think, a lot of us that are on there being like, please don't give away your animals for free. And there's a couple reasons. One is that for a rescue, that's kind of what helps us keep being able to keep being in business. We spend a lot of money per animal. The rehoming fee doesn't cover the expenses of the animal, but it helps us to keep going. So it's a major portion of our operations. For the animal's safety is the biggest reason we don't want people giving away animals for free. There are really bad actors out there. Um, there is a market for animals to be sold into some bad predicaments. If people have to pay for the animal, they are much less likely to be one of those people who is reselling the animal because they won't be able to make a profit from it. And there's some, well, if you can't afford a rehoming fee, you might not be able to afford keeping a pet. But I would say that is the least uh, of it. I have reduced my adoption fees for places I thought or people I thought were good homes. Um, so it is really number one, the animal safety, and I would say number two for rescues to help us stay in business.
Yeah, and I think people forget that it is a business. And even though a lot of rescues operate all volunteer based, even the people who run them, it still costs a lot of money in gas and materials and food and kennels, crates, you name it.
Absolutely. I think I haven't quite done my finances from last year, but I would say even as a small, a really tiny organization, we probably spend at least 10,000 a year in vet bills.
Yeah,
So
I believe that. I've seen some of those vet bills for even one animal with certain rescues.
yeah, it's a little, and we all know how much veterinary care costs these days, especially in California. So
Let me go off script for a second. Not that we have a script, but we do have some questions. And here's a question that we hear, but it's not on our sheet of 36 questions. And that is, how much does spay and neuter cost in California right now? And are there ways to get your pet spay and neutered if you really want to do it, which is the right thing to do because of the overcrowding in shelters? Um, how can people do that, and how much might it cost? And what are some workarounds?
it can cost anywhere from $40 or free to thousands of dollars. And a lot of that is depending on if you go to a low cost facility or use a city voucher versus go to a private veterinarian. Also, as usual, even the females get the pink tax, even if they're cats or dogs. What the females usually cost a little more to fix than the boys do. Dogs cost more, and it's a lot of times based on their weight. So bigger dogs will cost more because they require more euthanasia. If your animal is a little older and they need to do more blood work, more extensive blood work to make it sure it's safe, that'll cost a little more. But there are a lot of low cost spay neuter facilities, and they may take a little while to get into. There's usually a big waiting list. So if you have an animal and it's a baby, I would say start making that spay neuter appointment right now and for 3 months out, 4 months out, and get on the list as soon as you can. And if a rescue happens to have a spot open up, try and get on a waiting list. Um, but yeah, the city does provide vouchers. If you're low income, you can get spay neuter for free. The city of Los Angeles, this is. And if you don't fit into their definition of low income, you can still get a voucher as a credit towards um, a spay or neuter.
Thank
So
you. So I think a lot of people appreciate that information. And we've also had a request to have people come on and speak about spay and neuter. So that's possible more upcoming guests, correct?
yes, it's a huge topic and something really important. We're not going to get out of the current overcrowding situation we're in until we really get serious about spay and neuter, that's for sure. I'm Melody King, and you're listening to the Animal Agenda on KPFK. Today, I'm joined by my co-host Tom Kiesche to answer listener questions. This is a reminder that KPFK is currently in its fund drive, and we rely on you to support the work we do at this volunteer-run community radio station.
The number to call to donate is 818-985-5735. That's 818-985-KPFK. You can also donate securely online at kpfk.org. All right, who's up? You or me? Bring it on.
Europe, and people say, I really can't go into a shelter. I'm too sensitive. I'll get attached. What do you say to them to help me? How can I help otherwise, and or how can I overcome this fear of getting attached to the animals.
So I've heard this statement and from volunteers who hear the same question over and over and over. I'm so sensitive, I can't go in. I can't go into a shelter. I can't do this. And the reaction is pretty similar for most volunteers, and that is, so am I. I have feelings too. It hurts me too. But you kind of have to. If you stick your head in the sand like an ostrich, you don't solve the problem. You don't help the solution. So if you absolutely can't go, you know you can't go. I have had dog meets in parking lots. So they saw a dog on a video or in a on the website and they wanted to meet the dog, but they couldn't go meet the dog at the kennel. So they just went straight to the front of to the office and asked and didn't go in, or we made arrangements for them to meet the dog in the parking lot. That's one way to do it. People can volunteer um, behind the scenes doing PR, networking, anything you can think of. We need help all across the board, but everybody is sensitive. You can't be involved with animals and not be sensitive. And sometimes you just get kicked and kicked and kicked emotionally. And you just got to get up in the morning and go back in because we're all feeling it. And it's just a giant team. And if you don't go in, you let down your team and you let down all those animals.
I think it's also important to note that, a lot of us do need to sometimes step away and take a mental health break. That's pretty typical, and sometimes people don't do that, and it's a shame because that's really part of it is you have to learn how to care about yourself so that you can take care of other people and other animals. And to the fosters question, you absolutely get attached to your fosters. It would be weird if you didn't. Um, but you get to play such an important role in their life. Like I always tell people, no animal stays with its mom its whole life. It's just that would be strange, right? So, to watch them, you're like sending them off to college. They've grown up, they're ready to leave the nest, and you're attached, but you want to see them succeed and have a great life. So that's
Yeah,
how I personally kind of deal with the
I
loss of foster.
I'd say there's a couple different kinds of foster families. There's like the professional foster that I call, and that is they see it as their job. They take an animal, they work the animal until they get the animal to a point where the animal's ready to go out into the world, either because of social issues or medical issues, or maybe they're just too young. And then they let them go and they realize they served a purpose, they were of service. That was their job. And then there's the other sort of camp that takes in a foster because they're sort of test driving and they try out the animal for a little while. And most of those, it's basically fostering to adopt. And both are important, but I really give it up to those people who make it a service and a job. And it's just how they volunteer outside the system. It's just another way to help animals.
Yeah, we call the ones that keep their animals foster fails. And when people hear that, they're like, "Oh, were they a bad foster?" No, they're a great foster. They kept the animal, except now I need another foster. So, so but I do find there's a lot of people in the middle there. They aren't quite so cold and detached about it as their job, that they want to help, they want to be a foster. They didn't sort of expect it to be as emotionally, get the emotional attachment, and then they do, and it's hard to say goodbye, no matter how professional you want to be about it, you get attached to them, you take care of them and love them. So, yeah. So, I mean, but it's completely doable, and then you get a new one, and you get to love them, and it's great all over again.
Next
So,
question. Hey,
yes.
Melody, isn't
Yes.
it cruel to keep cats indoors all the time?
No. And I have a pretty complex answer for this because I understand where people are coming from. You know, cats are animals, animals go outside, blah, blah, blah. Um, but frankly, a lot of one, I think it's very cat dependent on if a cat even wants to be outside. And the older they are, the way less likely, in my experience, it's been for them to want to go outside. If they've lived on the streets and had a hard life, they absolutely don't want to go outside. Um, the cats that do want to go outside, I try and tell the owners for their safety, uh, for your vet medical bills, it's for the environment. Those are three of the big reasons to keep your cats indoors. If they still seem to want to go outside, it's probably because they're bored. And what you need to do is give them more mental stimulation. And there are ways to take your cat and give them outside time without letting them be a free roaming indoor outdoor cat. You can take them on, you can leash them, you can get a catio, you can get little playpens to take with you outside, take them into the yard for 15, 20 minutes at a time. And if people were willing to be as responsible about taking their cats outside as people typically are about taking their dogs outside, it might be something that could be a little more commonplace, but most people aren't. They just want to let their cat out and not supervise it, not keep track of it, not make sure it doesn't get hurt, or, some of the dangers include like eating poisoned rats or mice that people have put poison out for that can hurt your cat. There's always traffic and human dangers. There's wildlife dangers. There's getting in fights with other cats and catching diseases. There's having a lot more fleas and worms, that come from that. And on top of that, outdoor cats kill billions of songbirds every year. So they're typically considered, very bad for the environment. Australia, in fact, had to go on a, a very large feral cat extermination because they were actually making some of their native species go extinct. So we don't want to get to that point where we have to do that. So let's spay and neuter our kitties and keep them indoors as much as possible, but also provide them enriching stimulation so that they don't have that desire to go out.
My
Okay.
cat's an indoor cat. He loves it.
Your cat likes indoors or
Yeah.
out?
Ever since he's been attacked by 3 coyotes, he's like, I ain't going back out there.
See, that's a smart cat.
That is a smart cat.
One of my cats is afraid of stairs, so he'll go out on our little patio, but he won't go down the stairs. So I know I can open the door. He's not going anywhere because he's afraid of stairs. Cats are like having a neurotic best friend that lives with you. So let's go back to a question for you. What can the public do to help the shelter situation in general? Do you have specific examples?
Yeah, both. I can answer both of those, but I'll try to keep it tighter. The biggest thing is to make a commitment and keep your commitment. So if you get an animal, whether it's a dog or cat or rabbit or guinea pig, it's a lifetime commitment. And you need to honor that. It's such a disposable society that we need to know that we are making this commitment and we are going to keep it. That's number one. If we have less animals coming in for surrenders or strays that get dumped in parks or what have you, or even just protect your animal from making bad decisions. So you are responsible for your pet. You set the tone. If your dog is nervous about a particular type person, it's probably not the dog, it's probably your reaction to that type of person, and the dog acts out because of your reaction. I would say that's the number one. Number two, if you're going to surrender an animal, which we hate to see, don't lie. Don't exaggerate when you turn in an animal. We get some of these surrender notes that are so outrageously ridiculous that it's basically sentencing an animal to death. And if you're going to do that, just take the animal to a vet. And like, why torture it by putting in a shelter system with horrible notes that they're not going to let anyone touch that animal? So give them respect, give them love, be honest, and keep your commitments. Basically, I think I just figured it out. Be a better person.
Be a good human.
Be a good
Well,
human. Be a good
you know,
steward.
I'm Melody King, and you're listening to the Animal Agenda on KPFK. Today, I'm joined by my co-host Tom Kiesche to answer listener questions. This is a reminder that KPFK is currently in its fund drive, and we rely on you to support the work we do at this volunteer-run community radio station.
The number to call to donate is 818-985-5735. That's 818-985-KPFK. You can also donate securely online at kpfk.org. I have to ask you another question. Do you need to bathe your cat, and how would you bathe a cat? And I can just say, if I want my life to continue, I'm not going to bathe my cat. So, how do you
I
bathe?
have bathed many a cat.
Okay.
Prepare to get wet. Assume you will be wet by the end of it. Dress appropriately. And I've also had to bathe a lot of kittens for things like you have to do flea baths because they can't, they aren't old enough to have flea treatment put on them. So the biggest thing with cats, if you're going to bathe them, is preparation. And cats, while they like running water to drink, they don't like the sound of it for getting into, generally speaking. So, and they prefer water that is a little bit warmer than we might think of. They have a higher body temperature and they don't like being cold. So I usually set up my sinks so that I have one, two warm water sinks going, and I get my cat and I sort of dip the cat in and soap her up and then put her in the other one and dip her in and wash her off. And it's a very short, quick uh procedure. It's a very short procedure if you've got everything prepared. Sometimes it takes a little longer. You don't need to bathe cats in general. As they get older, they may stop cleaning themselves as much, or especially if they get sick. If they get fleas, you might need to do a flea dip. If they have an accident on the way to the vet and are back from the vet and are covered in poop, you're probably going to want to bathe them and not just let them run around your house. So there are occasions where you might need to bathe your cat, and that is how I do it. And I also heavily endorse some sort of grooming gloves to to help you with any potential scratches and things.
Yeah. All I can think of is I'd be bleeding out by now. So, um, here's a question, and I've heard this with guinea pigs and rabbits, but why do some rescues only adopt kittens out in pairs?
Because kittens are maniacs, is the short answer. Kittens are high energy, crazy little demons that will run around your house, the cutest ones you've ever seen. And they have a tendency, they have so much energy, and very few people have the uh, time and energy to really give one kitten the attention it needs. Um, And when there are two, frankly, they have much less chance of being returned because they have each other to play with and to entertain. So I have so many people come to me saying, I need a cat for my cat. And I'm like, why didn't you just get two? But people always think when I tell them to take two that I'm trying to just pass off another cat onto them. But the truth is, it's easier. You don't feel as bad if you go out of town or if you're away overnight or something, because they aren't there by themselves being lonely. Not every cat is going to like every other cat, and some cats are probably solo cats. But if they're already a bonded pair, you don't have to worry about how are they going to interact with each other? Do they like each other? It's just, it makes your life easier, and it helps us because we have way fewer returns on kittens. The other thing I caution people about with kittens, and I'm not saying don't adopt kittens, but you don't really know who kittens and puppies are going to be when they grow up. So I personally think like around 4 to 6 months, if you're looking for a kitten, that's the age to do it, not the 12-week. You have a bit better sense of their personality and who they're going to be, and if they'll be a good fit into your lifestyle. But yeah, that's the reason. We don't want kittens returned, and we want you to be happy, and we don't want them to destroy your place.
What you got for me?
So we actually had a personal question for you.
Uh-oh.
Somebody wanted to know, why'd you stop acting and singing and start putting most of your effort and time into volunteering and with animals and dogs?
Oh boy, long story question, but I haven't stopped singing and acting. I just have been doing less of it. And I get a lot of the creativity that I got from acting and singing by working with animals and problem solving and helping them tell their stories. So I really haven't given that up, but I've just switched a little bit, and it helps me fill the downtime in between gigs. And it's really slow for the last couple of years for whatever reason. And so it allows me to stay creative and positive and make a difference. And honestly, it's addictive. Well, you know you're making a difference to beautiful, loving animals. It's hard not to spend my time doing it. I'd rather do that, walk dogs with a leash, than go to a gym for an hour. So I mean, it's just I can be more of service, and I enjoy that.
Oh, that's so great. Yes, and I also agree that, volunteering is so rewarding, and one of the things when people talk about, we talked about going into a shelter, it's like, well, when you see how happy they are to see you, it kind of makes up for the sadness that you might get. It's like, oh God, they're so happy. So it
Yeah.
makes you happy.
And every time one gets adopted or a new home that you have any attachment to, it's really a great feeling. And yeah, unfortunately, the other side happens too, but you have to celebrate the wins. You have to celebrate the wins, and you have to mourn the losses. And hopefully, you get more wins than losses. But if you're not there, nobody's there.
Yeah.
So you have to be there.
This is Melody King, and you've been listening to the Animal Agenda on KPFK. My co-host today has been Tom Kiesche, and we've been answering some listener questions from our previous shows.
Hey, this is a reminder that KPFK is currently in its fund drive, and we rely heavily on you to support the work we are doing as volunteers. The number to call to donate is 818 985 5735. Wait, what is that? Oh, it's 818 985 KPFK. You can also donate securely online at kpfk.org. We really appreciate your listenership and support, and welcome your feedback by emailing the station at comments@kpfk.org.
Or you can find us on our Facebook page at the Animal Agenda.
Special thanks to producer Marlena Bond, and thank you for listening. Please tune in again to the Animal Agenda next Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. Stay tuned for the Lawyers Guild with Jim Lafferty coming up next. Thank you again for supporting the Animal Agenda and KPFK. Once again, that number to donate is 818 985 5735. That's 818 985 KPFK. Or donate securely online at kpfk.org.